Welcome everyone to the third installment of the CCIW's Decade Series, a part of their 175th anniversary celebration. My name is Sam Gobert and I am the Sports Information Director here at Carroll University. For this week's guest, I have Dr. Howard Fuller with me here today, a member of Carroll College's 1962 class. Dr. Howard Fuller came to Carroll on a Trailblazer scholarship in 1958 to play basketball. He was a Trailblazer on and off the court, becoming the first African-American man to attend Carroll and becoming the all-time leading rebounder in men's basketball program history. Dr. Fuller went on to obtain a master's and doctorate degree, traveled across the country as a key figure in the fight for civil justice, and became a leader in education reform here in Milwaukee area. Howard, thank you so much again for joining me here today.
Oh, happy to be here, Sam.
Great. So why don't you first start by telling me a little bit about how you got into playing basketball at a young age?
Well, I grew up in Milwaukee, and I grew up playing in a social center and on the playgrounds. And so so my first organized basketball I remember was they used to have a junior optimist program in the city of Milwaukee. And so I played on the team that won the citywide Junior Optimist Championship, representing the Latham Park Social Center. Because back then, Milwaukee, I think because of the socialist tradition, had a lot of what they call social centers, and every school had a playground. And so I grew up playing on the Latham Park Social Center and the Latham Park Playground. And as it turned out, that team that won the city championship, I think it was in 1955 or 56, most of us went to North Division and played on the first team from the city of Milwaukee to ever go to the state tournament in Madison. And my junior year, one of the dudes that was a starter was named David Heinbuch. He was the only white dude that started on our team. David and I became very close friends. And when he graduated, he went to Carroll. And he was a year ahead of me. So when I graduated from high school, I made all city. In my junior year, when we played in the state tournament, I was the co-leading scorer of the state tournament. And so I made the all tournament team. Then my senior year, when we went back upstate, we lost in the finals 62-59, not that I remember, but we lost to Pat Richter, who later on went on to play football at University of Wisconsin-Madison and basketball, and also ultimately became the athletic director at the University of Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. So when I graduated from high school, I had torn ligaments in both of my ankles, or in one of my ankles. And I was worried that if I went to a big school, I was being recruited, that if I got hurt, I wouldn't be able to finish college. So Carroll offered me, it was really through Shirley Hilger, who's one of the most phenomenal human beings. I've never ever heard about her, but she was in charge of admissions. And so Shirley, came to my house, met with me and my stepfather and my mother. And because David was out there, and there was an effort back then to try to integrate some of the state colleges. So interesting enough, Al Jarreau, famous jazz singer, we were in the 8th grade together at Lincoln. And so Al graduated and went to Ripon, and I graduated and went to Carroll. So we were a part of trying to integrate the colleges in the state. So I know it's a little bit more than what you asked, but that's sort of how all of that transpired.
No, yeah, that's good. Because my follow-up question to that was, when did you decide that, you could continue playing basketball into college, and what ultimately led you to Carroll's basketball team? I'm sure it was the help of David, correct?
Yeah, it was David. It was mostly Shirley Hilger, and it was also the effort to try to integrate colleges in the state of Wisconsin. And a man named Wesley Scott, who was my mentor from the Milwaukee Urban League, was urging me to, to do it. And when Carroll offered me the Trailblazer, the reason why that was attractive to me was I could keep my scholarship even if I got hurt. What I had to do was I had to have a higher grade point each year. And so that by the time I was a senior, I had to have a B average in order to keep the Trailblazer. And the Trailblazer was both, tuition, but also worked. I worked in the cafeteria. I also was I forget what we call them now, but I took care of one of the houses.
Okay.
Because back then we not only stayed in the dorms, but we had these houses.
Like a resident assistant.
Yeah, so I did that, and so the combination of the tuition and work and all of that, I was able to graduate from Carroll with no loans. I know that's hard to imagine, but and then I was able to play basketball for 4 years. So it was a phenomenal experience for me.
Yeah, that's not too common in this day and age to graduate with
I don't think
no
so.
student loans, but that's great. It's a fantastic thing when you're able to, and I think that speaks to Division III's legacy is being able to play a sport at the highest level you can, as well as maintaining a high academic standing, as well as being involved in your campus community, working in the cafeteria, and being a resident assistant. That just goes to show the impact that Division III sports can have on a student's life.
Yeah, I mean, like my freshman year, Carroll used to have a great big bonfire. They probably don't do that anymore, but a great big bonfire before the first football game. And I remember in the ninth grade, my first year as a freshman, I ended up leading cheers and stuff at the bonfire. So then the next year they made me commissioner of school spirit when I was a sophomore. And then ultimately, I went on to be president of student body when I was a senior. And because at the time, betas were the quote jock fraternity on campus. So I was recruited to become a beta. So David and actually just about all of the dudes on the basketball team were betas. So, in spite of the fact that I was the only Black person on campus for at least the first couple years that I was there might have been a biracial dude, now that I remember. And then Irie Grant, who's in the Hall of Fame, he just passed recently. He came from my high school as a freshman when I was a senior. So what's really interesting is I'm still in contact with a number of friends that I made at Carroll who are still alive. And we just recently had a Zoom call. And several of them, like my roommate, were also basketball players. So Carroll proved to be a great experience for me, even though I would never ask anybody to go through what I went through. But for me, it turned out to be a good experience.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That kind of segues into my next question then too, is, being Carroll's first Black student on campus for a number of years, what impact did that have on your experience there, and I guess your life moving forward, that you were, you started something at this small state school?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I'm the first Black male to graduate from Carroll. I know for certain I'm not the first Black student, because I met a woman who had gone to Carroll before me, and I think she graduated. And back during the war, there may have been some Black ex-GIs that attended Carroll but didn't graduate. So there wasn't a lot of them, leave it that way. So I think I am probably the first Black male to graduate. I think the thing is that I was able to make lifelong friendships. I got a great education at Carroll, and I was able to play basketball. But there were times when that was very difficult. I never really experienced outward racism on campus from students. There were clearly people on campus who were racist, and who were saying different things that never really got in my face. But also being in a CCCI, what's really interesting about that is that we were the only Wisconsin team in the conference, because Carthage at that point was still in Illinois. And they moved to Wisconsin later. I'm not sure if they moved while I was still there, but they initially were in Illinois. So we were the only Wisconsin team in the conference. And Sam, back then, traveling down to Rock Island and that was like going into the South, man. And I mean, they couldn't stay at all of the hotels because of me. I remember after playing a game, it was either with Illinois Wesleyan, I think it was Wesleyan. We went into, the team went to a bar afterwards, and, my teammates were told the best thing they could do was to get me out of there. So playing in the conference back then and making that trip when we would go play Augustana, Illinois Wesleyan, and North Central, and I think Carthage as well. Those were tough times back at that point. But again, the treatment that I got, at Carroll was phenomenal. But again, I would never recommend that anybody do what I did.
Gotcha. That does sound like there was, like you said, there were some good times, but also some of the very negative impacts that kind of came along with it, and some of the experiences. I'm very sorry to hear about some of those things that you had to go
Yeah,
through.
but so it's. I mean, you look at the world that we live in today, and it's got its own set of problems, right? But one thing I remember is that when we played Augustana, my freshman year, these people were yelling out to me, red cap, it's kind of, and you could hear it, and I probably did something I shouldn't have done. I probably shouldn't talk about it, but I made an obscene gesture in response. And so they booed me every year. It became a tradition to boo me down in Augustana. I think it just got passed on, so, but by and large, I didn't really deal with much on the floor. There was probably a couple of things said, but for the most part, we just played, you know what I mean? And so, because North Central had a couple Black players, from Chicago.
Okay.
The other schools didn't.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess looking into some of the more, positive or uplifting, what were some of the more positive and uplifting memories you had while playing basketball here for Carroll?
Yeah, first of all, I think we only lost one game at home in my 4 years at Carroll, and that was to Wheaton, because back then Wheaton was like number one in small colleges.
Right.
And so I think my senior year we had a really good record. We should have gone to Kansas City. We got beat by Whitewater. We never should have lost to them. But I had such a phenomenal time playing. The old gym was a great place to play in because it had that balcony, and the baseline extended up underneath the balcony, and so there was a trick to getting rebounds without going out of bounds. And back then, basketball games were like a huge social event, and so the place was always packed because we had a good team, even though we never won the CCI. I forgot the highest that we, but I think my senior year we were 17-6 or something like that.
Right.
And so we my 4 years there, we had good teams, and it was just a tremendous place to play in, because it was deafening in there because the size of the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just remember really just having fun. I was playing ball, we were dealing, and I was getting a college education. And so for me, it was just a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And being in Ganfield Gymnasium a couple times now and being around the area and down even on the floor, I can't, the how compact it is compared to our Van Male Gymnasium now.
Yeah,
I can imagine, I can hear the ringing in your ears that must be going on when you're trying to grab a rebound or you're trying to talk to coach and everybody's shouting from the stands above you. That's got to be a phenomenal thing.
Yeah, but I remember a game that we won, I think it was against North Central. And I can see it as clear as as it was happening right now, because I think we won by 1 point or something like that on a free throw that I made. But what happened was that we were down by 2, and we somehow we stole the ball, and David Heinbuch, so this is when I was a junior, somebody threw the ball to him, and it was just about to go out of bounds, and David somehow leaped up, got the ball, and threw it to me, and I made the basket and got fouled with like a few seconds left. And Sam, the noise was so, it was like a jet plane had, had rolled into Ganfield. I mean, the way that the noise came off of the floor, and like you said, in that compact place, I mean, it was, it made it exciting, right? Because like I said, the gym was packed. I mean, like one of the things that really, I don't know, made me a little bit, I don't know, sad, was the last game that I went to at Carroll, and this year, when people could still come to games.
Right.
And it really hurt me that there was so few people, in the stands, right? Because when I was playing, man, every game was like, but again, it was sold out because you had a pack, to get into the gym as opposed to the big field house. Right. But I think sports may have been viewed differently back then too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we, get towards the beginning of the year, and I remember the games that you attended, our turnouts started a little low, but once we got into the heat of conference season, we started to really involve our student body and our fan section, and it turned out to be a great environment. And that kind of leads to my question, when you came to watch Carroll's game this past year, and I believe it was late 2019 or early 2020, what would you say the intensity level of today's basketball compared to the basketball that you played back in the 60s? How would you compare the two different CCIW styles of basketball?
I always try to be careful about old people talking about how rough it was back there when we were playing and all of that. I don't get in that. I mean, sitting there on the floor, honestly, Sam, you couldn't tell it. I mean, in other words, as I'm sitting there watching it, the first thing that you really think about is, did I ever really play that game? And was I ever really that young? Because when you're sitting there on the floor, as you know, it seems like, where's the space to do anything? But but when you're in the game, when you're actually playing it, everything is like totally different. And so I really didn't see that much difference, other than, obviously shooting the threes. So that opens up the floor like a lot more than when we were playing. But, basically, it was the same, like you play defense or you don't play defense. There's zones, there's man-to-man, there's you switch off and all of that. So I didn't really see that much difference, in terms of what it was like as opposed to when we were playing.
Right. Now the game,
other than the threes, and that's a big difference, because it opens up the lane a lot more.
Right.
Because people are shooting threes.
Mm-hmm. And especially as the years go on, it started to expand farther and farther down the court to make the 3-point line deeper. Yeah. Right. That's the thing about basketball, is it's become such a generational sport, and something that, anyone from, someone from the 1960s and 70s can enjoy with someone down to of the 2000s and the 2010s that we are today. People can still enjoy the same root cause of basketball. I think.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, people start talking about who could have played in what generation. sitting there in that watching the game, I could play it in this generation. I mean, because you would have tailored your game differently.
Right.
Because if you can play, you can play. It's sort of the way I look at it, right? And so people can't tell me, oh, well, Wilt couldn't play today, or Oscar Robertson. Oh, come on, man, let's get serious. I mean, people who can play, and you would play based on how the game was being played at the moment in history in which you live, right?
Right.
And so really, really great athletes, I think, can participate in any era, because you would train yourself and practice to play as it is being played in that era. Now, and so, for example, looking at the team I saw, I don't think that those athletes were bigger and stronger than us necessarily. That may be true in Division I, I don't know, but I didn't see anybody, I'm like, oh my God, they're so much bigger and stronger and faster than us. I didn't really get that feeling.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. There's definitely I would say, a type for basketball. They all kind of feel the same, play the same way, a body type. So what would you say that, as we talked about a little bit, basketball has been a generational game. It's something that a lot of people can enjoy, and a lot of people consider it art and super helpful for their development. How would you say that playing basketball for Carroll made you into the person you are today? What experiences could you take out of playing basketball into life?
That's interesting. I think a couple of things. The number one thing that playing basketball helped me do was to be calm under pressure. So being a superintendent and all of the positions that I've held, in my life, spending 31 days with a guerrilla column in Mozambique and being attacked by the Portuguese while I was in there and not knowing if I was going to be killed. To be honest with you, playing basketball trained me to be calm at the moment. I was the kind of player, so I wanted the ball in the final seconds, right? For me, particularly by the time I became like a junior and a senior, the game has slowed down. I mean, like I could see everything. I could see things before they happen. And so that whole way of controlling your emotions, because I never wanted any player to think that he was better than me. And I also like to talk trash. I mean, that was a part of the fun of it, right? There's no fun if you can't take somebody into the basket and let them know I'm getting ready to take you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Exactly.
So there's a certain amount of fun that comes with that. But I think that being calm under pressure, I do think that there's something to teamwork. It's something to be on a team and to be able to understand that in order for you to be successful, the team has to be successful. So I learned a lot through sports about how to work with other people and how to try to understand the different strengths that people bring. Like I tease my roommate even now, he couldn't go to his left. So I knew there was no sense in throwing the ball over there that would require him to go to his left. So what you always try to do is to figure out, like, what are the strengths of your teammates? And how do you, to the degree that you can, put them in a position where they can be successful, right? Because that's how the team is successful, when we're all successful. And then, for me, obviously, being the only Black person in the school, for a couple of years, and being able to be elected like president of the student body, obviously I had to figure out how to relate to people from totally different, backgrounds than me. And so I learned a lot from that. And then I think the last thing, and it probably should have been the first thing, is that I really got a great education at Carroll. I mean, the smallness, the size. Like I remember Professor Van Heitzman, who was one of my favorite professors. And I just remember, being in these small classes, I remember one of the classes I took, Sam, and I took it in Old Main, and it was up at the top of Old Main back then.
Oh man.
And it was a medieval Europe class, man. And it was like early in the morning. And there was only about 4 of us. So you couldn't even go to sleep in there because there's only 4 or 5 of us trying to learn medieval Europe, if you can imagine. So the discipline that it took, though, to study has helped me because I read a lot. And some of those practices I got from my time at Carroll.
That's great. Yeah, it goes to, against, once again, talking about the D3 mentality and of today's standards, of how well we're able to study in the classroom, and then also how well we're able to perform on the court, and have these and build these great types of memories and turn them into the people we are today. It's a true testament to what we're striving for, what we strove for back then and what we strive for today. So,
yeah, I think the notion of the scholar athlete, is probably more real at D3. I mean, because you don't go there normally thinking I'm gonna, play for the Bucks. I mean, you don't. I mean, I'm only gonna be here for a year. I mean, you go there thinking I'm gonna get a great education, right? And what the sport does is give me the pathway, my ticket, in order to get that college education. And so you probably approach it, very differently.
yeah, absolutely. So that kind of wraps up all the questions that I had today. Do you have any other comments on the CCIW's, decade series that we're doing?
No, I was just really happy when Carroll got back into the conference. I just never thought that we sort of fitted, playing Lawrence and all. And not that I didn't, we played them, like, we played Ripon. We played a couple of colleges in Wisconsin in the state.
Mm-hmm.
But I always loved the conference, that we were in. And so I was really pleased when we got back into the conference. I don't know what it's like now, how the young people feel, playing in the conference. But for us, it was really great. The level of competition was really great. And, even though I had some of these negative experiences that I mentioned, by and large, it was a very positive experience for me.
Right. Yeah. We're all glad to and happy to be back in this conference as well. I think it adds to that historical part of it, and rehashing on some of those memories that we talked about, of the old days of playing in Ganfield against North Central and Wheaton in the big time matchup. So I think it's a positive all around to be back.
Yeah, I mean, and then making those, back then the road trips we drove, right? Because you would get, I remember Doug had a 56 Chevy stick shift. And one of the things that we did is we always required freshmen to ride in the back seat. That was, what we did. And so what we would do is on those road trips, going down what's 94, we would wait. The freshmen would always go to sleep, and we would wait until they go to sleep, and then we would open up this is in the dead of winter, and we're sitting there with the heat on, and then we would open up the windows. That was one trick we did with the freshmen, and the other one, which was really cruel, was we would wait until they went to sleep, and then all of a sudden Doug would just jam on the brakes, and we would scream as if we were in an accident. So I know that have nothing to do with what our interview was all about, but I just thought I would just tell you about those fun road trips because of the conference we were in.
No, I think a lot of those small freshman pranks are still being played today too, and it's part of the tradition now. Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much, Howard, for taking the time to meet with me today. I really appreciate you. Appreciate your comments and appreciate the interview.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was fun.
All right. Take care.